President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called on African leaders to respect democracy, rule of law, and ensure political stability. Tinubu stated this in Nairobi, Kenya, at the high-level event organized by the United Nations Development Programme on the margins of 5th Mid-Year African Union Coordination Meeting. In a statement by spokesperson Dele Alake, the president called on institutions in Africa to recognize and respect the need for democratic renewal. Tinubu, who is also the chairperson of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, said coup d'etat should be discouraged in the continent. He said the trend of military incursion to politics is a threat to peace, security, and stability, poverty, displacement, and humanitarian crisis in Africa. The president, in his statement presented by Ambassador Adamu Ibrahim Lamuwa, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, said it was regrettable that West Africa, despite its numerous instruments and mechanisms for promoting democracy and good governance, is leading other regions in the use of unconstitutional means to change governments. Well, another trip for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Kenya. He was represented there by Ambassador Lamuwa. But you know that Tinubu has been a strong advocate for deepening democracy across West Africa, even throughout his fight earlier in his political years. But then we'll ask, are we respecting the rule of law here in Nigeria? Because he's calling for the respect of rule of law. And people are just saying, even just recently, we've had different issues like the detention of suspended governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele. We'll have a guest later on to discuss that. Also the EFCC chairman. We also have, the issue of the vessel that was blown up only recently. People are calling it jungle justice. I mean, we're seeing this in the beginning of his administration. So we are also seeing that he should be able to, call a lot of these things to order. We are hoping that that will happen. But, there are a lot of coups d'etat in West Africa. Only last September, Antonio Guterres, announced that coups are back. What are the reasons for these coups in West Africa? Political instability, electioneering, poor economics. All of these insecurity, all of these are the reasons for these coups. It is important that the African Union come together to make sure that, these military rulers don't come back to power. But you see in most African countries or West African countries, when these military rulers come back, there's some sort of jubilation in some parts of, the country. This is because they are calling for change. Steve, Sheraton, do you want to start?
Between 2020 and now, I agree with you. Africa has witnessed about 6 successful coup d'etats, and 3 of them were unsuccessful. And just to kind of reiterate the point that you've made, just like President Tinubu said, there's a call for all Afrocentric supranational organizations, especially in the African Union, the various regional economic communities and regional mechanisms to individually and collectively adopt protocols on democracy and good governance and ensure their effective promotion. So if you're promoting that, especially now that he's the chairperson at ECOWAS, he was inaugurated on the 9th of this month, and we're seeing him obviously using that office to push across this goodwill message. But as you're pushing across a goodwill message, you have to make sure that your house as well is in order.
Absolutely,
you cannot tell other African leaders how to practice good governance and democracy and the rule of law if you're not doing that yourself. So in as much as I love the message, I love that he's using his platform to push across such a message. It's important that before we start to teach other people, try to tell other people how to run their countries, that we do the same thing. So I really agree with you on that. And just to touch on the fact that even though we are grappling with the challenges, of course, with the socio-economic impacts of COVID and the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course other like geostrategic tragedies, and now fuel subsidy, just the pinch that Nigerians are dealing with now, even insecurity, climate change, all of those other things, that it's important that the United Nations as well, which is where this particular speech was for the UNDP, that they also, I guess, keep these leaders in check and in line to make sure that they are fulfilling their rights as the leaders of I don't want to just say third world nations, but I guess that's what we are at this point.
Emerging
economies, definitely. Over to you, Steve.
All right. I mean, the context is important. The context in which the president, spoke about political stability and the rule of law, so that we don't judge him by the standards that he hasn't set. I think we shouldn't forget the fact, OG, that this is a president who is a self-acclaimed father of all Democrats. You remember what he said, during the election in Edo State. So I like the fact that he is pushing himself forward as an advocate for democracy, which is important because if you look at the 24 years of democracy, return to democracy in Nigeria, 16 of them have been by generals who turned to politicians and Democrats. Obasanjo's 8 years and Buhari's 8 years. But unlike them, Tinubu has been a Democrat all his life.
Yes.
Part of NADECO, fought for Lagos to make sure that, things worked well, especially when it was against the federal government. So I think it's on that basis that he spoke, which of course follows what he said at Guinea-Bissau, at the ECOWAS meeting, to say that coups are no longer fashionable. And he's right, he's correct. We may not be too comfortable with the way that we practice democracy, but coups are not an alternative. Military interventions cannot be an alternative. They should safeguard, African countries, but not to take over government.
Yes.
That was the extension of the message that he took, to Kenya, and I think that we should appreciate that. In terms of rule of law and everything, well, I mean, it's a work in progress, isn't it? Election has come and gone. A winner was declared, and they are aggrieved whether it's the number 2 or it is the louder number 3. They have gone to court, and we will have to wait and see how that works. And then in terms of, all the other things that we'll be discussing later, Mefile, Bawa, etc. Like we said yesterday, Shaitan, power is transcendent. People should always remember that when you are no longer in power, will you want to be judged by the standard that you set?
As you said.
In dealing with other people. That should always be at the back of everybody. Power is transcendent.
Absolutely. I think the ballpark of this conversation is that all African leaders should ensure that, they create a conducive environment for these coups not to thrive. Well, let's turn our attention now to a story in Edo State, Nigeria. The Ekpoma-Auchi Federal Highway has witnessed massive deterioration, creating huge craters, ditches, and erosion, which have completely taken over portions of the road. The situation has left motorists traversing that journey for several hours in harrowing conditions. Our ICE correspondent in Benin City, Christy Macaulay, brings the situation report.
Ekpoma-Auchi Federal Highway is one of the roads credited to the administration of Yakubu Gowon. The road linking Edo to Kogi, Abuja, and other northern parts of the country has gradually become a death trap. Erosion seems to have washed a part of the road, creating gullies. Over 3 decades, no meaningful remedial work in form of maintenance has taken place on the road. The situation is further worsened anytime it rains. This major highway that links the north and the southwest has been abandoned, left only for motorcyclists and heavy-duty vehicles who spent as much as 10 days traversing the 2-hour stretch of the road.
The road no good. I did so far 2 days, 3 days, 5 days I did road. But the road no good at all. But the government supposed to help repair this road, work this road.
Small business owners and fuel stations on the route are counting their losses as economic activities is at its lowest ebb.
The road affects us well because of the hold up. Nothing, we know they feed the sell again. And manage, we can't take the sell. Now just the grace of God. I want make government make dem come still help all of us. Now all of us now they pass the road. Otherwise, say we not get motor. At least make dem still help the people.
Even the people that have shop, they don't have customers. Even the car wash, no car used to come there to come and wash. The road is bad and it's affecting everybody.
Indigents and road users in the area have no choice but to continue to appeal for help from relevant government agencies.
So it's an appeal to the new government that we have of Tinubu that please, people are suffering. Those planning this road are taxpayers. We have no reward whatsoever that if they are enjoying good roads in Abuja, in Kaduna, and other places, we in this Edo Central should be able to also have such benefit. But I tell you, nothing like that is happening. But we are concerned that with the coming of Tinubu, maybe something new might come up. This would have been like this for the past 13 years.
If you look at all the trailers right now, this is economic waste already. The transportation of goods and services is completely blocked. The roads are totally impassable. This is just like one part of all other parts from here to Auchi. So while I'm very much concerned, they said we should renew hope. The renewal of the hope is that we pray, plead, beg God, Allah, Tinubu to come and rescue us from this eyesore.
Immediate past Minister of State for Budget and Planning, Clem Agba, in a recent outing in Benin, explains reasons for the delay in the rehabilitation of the roads.
The main problem of that road has been that of finance, has put in enough budget to do the road. So we thought that we should look for special funding mechanisms for this road. So I was able to work with my colleague in the Ministry of Works, work with the chairman of the Federal Land Revenue Service, and we agreed to a tax credit funding system for the road.
The bad portion by Agbete after Irua is another cause of concern. The road close to Okene in Kogi State has been deserted by motorists. No thanks to the deplorable condition of the road.
We don't sleep well because of the noise. No, the road is not like we are not living peacefully here.
People of the state are hoping that the federal government will do the needful, mobilize contractors to site and get work done here. Christy Macaulay, Arise News, Benin.
This was a detailed report. Well done to Christy there in Benin City. It was important that she was able to highlight the deplorable state on that Ekpoma road. But you heard the people there say that, we're hoping that Tinubu will come in and fix the roads. Steve, you said he's the Idon in fixing roads.
The president is the ultimate Idon.
Exactly. It is quite deplorable that is a federal highway. We are listening to Clem saying that, they are trying to have this funding mechanism to have this type of, what did he say? Tax. Yes, Clem Agba. Tax credit funding system. What is going on with that? How is it that people are suffering? We have all of these issues that have come up only recently. I only just feel sorry for those people plowing that road. Really.
Me too.
Steve, it's heartbreaking.
Me too, OG. But you see, it is symptomatic of how bad, how terrible, how deplorable most of the federal roads in Nigeria are. And it's such a shame that given all the promises that the immediate past Minister of Works and Housing, former Governor of Lagos State, BRF Raji Fashola, all the promises that he gave, this is still where we are. And frankly speaking, it is something that we can feel happy about. Lagos-Ibadan Road is still there. You need to experience what people are going through at the Berger, Kara end of the road, weeks on end. This is the same Mr. Fashola who promised that the entire budget to fix the Third Mainland Bridge had been released and that everything was going to be fixed before he leaves office on the 31st of May. Here we are. The mainland bridge is still terribly bad. So I wonder when people like that were governors and they were fighting the federal government about how bad the federal roads are. Now that they get there, and they are put in charge of things like that. And power ministry was taken away from you so that you could concentrate on works. And now saying works especially. But here we are, the state of federal roads. I think that the ultimate, the president himself, has a job cut out for him. Who will come in as a works minister will just have to be specific in targeting the very bad ones.
Absolutely.
There are plenty. There are plenty across states.
Yes,
but
I've
then
seen
go
one
for
in
the
Ogun State. We saw one in Enugu State.
Yes, of course. I mean, very quickly, we're looking at this Ekpoma Auchi Benin Road, and now just looking at it, it appears as a gaping a wound festering on the conscience of all the people on there. And I think it should also fester on the conscience of the politicians in Edo State. And I've heard some back and forth as to why the road has been left to deteriorate. And among many is the indication that, of course, it's a federal road and therefore it cannot be fixed by the state government. But if we're looking at it as the road or the property of the federal government, then why is the federal government still not willing to fix it? That's a very important question.
And they can be fixed by states. The federal government will just reimburse them.
Exactly.
So
that's the standard.
They don't have to wait for them. But of course, I think this is a good place to end our headline stories for today.
Absolutely.